Hi, this is attorney Jamie Miller from the Miller Law Chronicles, and today we have a very special guest in Tim Pierce, who's worked here at Miller & Miller for almost 8 years. He is our client service manager, customer service manager. He's the first person that our clients talk to when they come to Miller & Miller. And he's going to talk about how he has so much empathy and understanding, how he listens to clients, how he's able to decipher the problems that they have and get them pointed in the right direction. And he does it with lots of love and caring. He'll talk about a story about someone that he helped get their medication after their car was repossessed and help them get their car back on an early Saturday morning. But Tim's just a really great guy, a great person, a great resource here at Miller & Miller. And I'm excited to share his stories with you about the hundreds of people's lives that he helps to improve through the conversations that he has with each and every person that calls Miller & Miller that has a question about what filing bankruptcy might look like and how it might help them. Here at the Miller Law Chronicles, we really welcome anybody who's willing to listen, where we simplify the legal maze by giving clients clarity and confidence as they navigate their way through the legal process. We're here to help answer questions, and I appreciate you listening in. I think you'll really love this podcast with Tim Pierce. This one was a special one. Hi, this is attorney Jamie Miller from the Miller Law Chronicles. Really excited today to bring you another edition of our podcast. I think it's number 13 or 14. I can't believe time is going so fast. Been doing this for a little bit. But today I wanted to bring a special guest on, a gentleman by the name of Tim Pierce, who is a fine person, a friend, someone that's been working here at Miller & Miller for almost 8 years. Before the podcast today, I asked him what his title was, and his title's changed so much over the years. I think we're both confused by it. But generally, he is the customer service manager, client service team lead. Tim is generally the first face and first voice that our clients hear when they first reach out to Miller & Miller. And Tim, I'm really excited to welcome you. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, Jamie. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It's been so nice to work with you for 8 years. I want to ask you the questions like, what keeps you here so long? I'm so grateful to you.
Well, I'm happy to be here. And actually, what keeps me here is what we do and the people that work here. What we do, I can feel really good about. And I can feel like we're actually helping people. And you don't get that in a lot of different places that you could work. And I love being able to do that here. And I also enjoy people that actually work here. We all get along very well. We're like one big happy family.
Right. And just come a little bit closer to the mic. We'll be able to hear you a little bit better. That's great. And it's when someone's been at one employer for almost 8 years, it's a real testament to you for sticking with us. And I hope it says a lot about what we do here, because I can't tell you how much it means to me when I have someone of your stature and your capabilities that stick with us for this long. So, I'll take that opportunity to say, thank you so much. You're really good at what you do. And tell me a little bit about Tim Pierce, where you're from, where you grew up, where you live a little bit, that type of thing. It'd be great to hear some background.
Sure. Well, I grew up here in Milwaukee. I'm a Wisconsin native, and I lived here all my life on the east side, mostly. And then I took a detour and went out to Hollywood for about 10 years and lived there. And I worked in the tourism industry, which was very interesting. And after that wound up, I came back here. What I like to do, I like to go walking. I like, hang out with friends. And I love being back in Milwaukee. It's been actually 10 years now that I've been back in Milwaukee, and I'm here to stay.
Right. So what did you do in the tour industry in LA? What was your role there?
So I managed a tour company for a while. I stepped down from that and did dispatch and tour guide, and then I did sales as well.
That's great. Are you one that likes celebrities and seeing celebrities and that type of thing?
I sure did at the time, but it then it kind of got old after a while, and it was interesting. No, it was very interesting. Got to meet a lot of interesting people. Got to meet some celebrities too. Actually, got to walk a red carpet with some big name celebrities for the ABC 50th anniversary special. Got to be in the audience and actually walk the red carpet with the stars from all the ABC shows. So that was really exciting.
Oh, that I love celebrities. I've been known to chase them around. And then I know, so you've been back in Milwaukee, and then I know you had a long term employment at Time Warner Cable, now Spectrum. What was your role there?
There, I was a retention representative. So my job was to, when people were very unhappy with their cable service and or their internet or their landline phone service, to talk to them about options and resolve their issues so that they would be happy with the service and keep the service. And there was a lot of cord cutting too, and my job was to show them the value of keeping cable.
I that had to be very challenging. You probably dealt with a lot of frustrated people, and really had to deal with some anger and that type of thing. And how long did you do that for?
For about 2 years.
Okay. I want to talk to you a little bit about your role here. Tell us a little bit about what you do specifically, what you're working on now.
Sure. Well, like you said, I'm the first point of contact usually for most of the people that reach out to Miller and Miller, and people reach out just for a lot of different things. And I kind of think of myself as the ears of the company because when people call us, they don't necessarily know what they want to do. They just know they have a problem. And it's my job to figure out what the best solution for their problem is, where they can get the help they need. Now, oftentimes that is by filing a bankruptcy and having them talk to an attorney who can go over bankruptcy and see if that's going to work for them. Other times, their situation, bankruptcy might not be appropriate. There might be another option for them. We have a whole network of people that I can refer people to that, and all of our partners care very much about our clients. So if somebody needs a disability lawyer, we have an excellent firm that we refer people to. If somebody needs some consumer protection assistance, we have somebody fantastic who we refer people to. Even things like workers' comp or getting help with their taxes, things like that. Those are the kinds of calls I get. And it's really my job to determine what the best route, what the best channel of help is going to be, and to get them connected to the person that can help them.
You kind of sound like a social worker almost, because you're just there listening to people's problems. And someone call, let's say they're calling about a bankruptcy, or a bankruptcy law firm, and we advertise out to the community through different means, whether it's radio or the internet. And so that call comes in, and tell me a little bit about that experience, what you're hearing on the other end when someone does call in, and they're probably anxious and they want to talk to somebody about the problems that they're having with their debts.
Well, yes. And, quite often they're just very emotional. And what I've found over the years is that no two people that call are alike. I mean, there may be similar solutions to certain people for certain people, but every person's story is different. Everything that brought them to make their call here is different. And I like to listen to see what's really important to them, what's really causing them some problems, what's causing them some stress. And sometimes it can be financial. I mean, quite often it is some form of financial, but there's a reason underneath that. Underneath, just, well, yeah, I want to file bankruptcy, or I'm having financial trouble. What's going on? Well, you hear things like, I can't afford to get my medication for my diabetes, or I can't figure out how to get a car and I've got to take my kids to school. And these are real life situations. So it's good to know, I try to take the time and listen to them and find out really what's important to them so that I can get them to somebody who can help.
Right, and there's a real art to that, and being able to be empathetic and have compassion and the willingness to listen and understand. And tell me, how are you able to maintain that? I mean, you handle multiple calls a day. How are you able to handle that empathy and maintain that compassion?
It's honestly just who I am. I mean that I hear the emotion in their voice, and I hear that I see the people as people. They're coming to us and they're people and they have problems that need to be solved. And sometimes people will break down on the phone and cry because they're relieved that somebody's actually hearing them and hearing what they have to say. We're not just trying to set up something for them one size fits all. And I think the whole firm does this, that people really care about the individual and their specific situation.
Right. And you had said that they're nervous, but how, someone, oftentimes people that we deal with that have financial issues really haven't talked to a lawyer before, haven't called a law office, they're nervous, maybe embarrassed. How do you help them overcome that anxiety that they invariably will have when they're reaching out to you?
So it really depends on what's causing the anxiety. Sometimes they're worried about what they're going to do about their problem. Sometimes they feel ashamed, and we don't judge people here, because we understand that life happens. So even for them to just come out and admit and accept that there's an issue here that needs to be fixed is is half the battle. And just finding out and really listening and caring, just like everybody else at the firm does, through every step of the process, we want to help them and listen to them. I think it's listening that's the most important thing, because somebody who has no interest in getting a car, is not interested in what our steps to get a car. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what's important to them. I'm taking notes about what they're telling me so that the next person, that if I do end up referring them to an attorney here or to have a consultation with someone, or if I end up referring them out to somewhere else, I'm taking notes about what they're telling me so that everything down the line, everybody that's going to be interacting with them knows what's most important to them and what the situation is.
Right. And how often, and you mentioned a little bit earlier, often people call, they may be calling about a financial issue, but they may have other things going on as well. Do you find that to be the case? It could be, you know, maybe they were injured in an accident and that caused the financial, or maybe they're going through a divorce. Are you seeing that a lot when people call?
Yeah, there's always something that is going on, and that's what I want to find out. Like, for example, I mean, some of the stories, some of the things that I've heard about people's lives, I really do feel for them. One gentleman, this sticks out in my mind. A few years ago, his house just burnt down to the ground, and there was no homeowners insurance for some reason, but he just basically lost everything he had. Another gentleman had two of his children shot and moved up to Milwaukee, and then he got a divorce, and there was no, he was just starting with absolutely no family and no money, and he was just broken up. And I can't blame him. I mean, I can't even imagine what he's going through. But there's always something. There's always a situation going on beyond just money.
And it takes a keen mind to really sense and to want to ask those questions, because you could rush them through and just say, I just want to, I want to get an appointment scheduled. But for you, it's more than that. It's building that relationship. And we get a lot of great reviews, Google reviews or Yelp or Facebook, And I can tell you that many times your name is mentioned in those reviews. And that's just, again, another a testament to you to build the confidence and build the excitement and understanding that, we're really here to help. And that's great. And if you could, so let's focus on someone that needs financial help, whether it's bankruptcy or something like that. And what is that? I don't want to put you on the spot, but what's their two top concerns? Like, I don't want to file bankruptcy because what? I mean, what are you hearing those objections are?
Well, there's two reasons. One is I don't want to file bankruptcy because I'll never be able to get credit again, which when you work with Miller and Miller, that's absolutely not true. In fact, everyone I've seen, their credit score goes up. And we have a three-step process that gets you to 720 or higher. But even right away, having this amount of debt versus having the debt wiped away and doing it bankruptcy, their credit goes up. So that's a concern that we can put to rest pretty easily. Another concern that people have about filing is they want to pay their bills. People want to take responsibility. They spent the money. They were brought up, and that shows there. They were brought up. This is, a debt. This is my debt, and I'm going to pay it. But sometimes it's not feasible for them to do it, and sometimes, they need to understand that bankruptcy is a consumer protection law to help people when they get in over their head. And it's not something you can do every day, but it's something that is allowed to help people. And I look at it as a consumer protection law. A lot of great people, I always say, Abraham Lincoln filed bankruptcy, or Larry King filed bankruptcy, Dionne Warwick filed bankruptcy. A lot of great people filed bankruptcy who are successful and got and started over and did very well.
Right. And I talk to a lot of clients that need to file bankruptcy, and I never like to oversell it, right? You talked earlier about, getting a 720 credit score and, being able to get that car, get a house or something like that. But it's so important to be honest with people. And I know that's one of the things that's very important to you, because I think you and I are both aligned in that we want we want to be able to give them enough information that they're able to make the decision on to file or do what's best for them and their families. So you're not and I want to demean it by saying used car salesman, right? So when somebody calls you, you're not goal is that you got to file for bankruptcy, right? I mean, it's more what? How do you view your role in kind of bringing the client along?
Yeah, absolutely. Bankruptcy is not for everyone. And when I don't have any preconceived notions when I start talking to somebody on the phone as to what's going to happen, and I don't, I'm not a salesperson, I'm really here to listen so that we can either get you to somebody in our network or get you to an attorney here in our office or somebody here who can help or see what kind of help is available. There's times when I've referred people, just gone through their situation and said, hey, your best bet is really to just make a payment arrangement with the creditor. It's not in your interest to hire an attorney right now because there's not enough debt is one reason, or if there's not, if there's a situation, I recall, speaking to someone who was 78 years old and he really didn't have much debt at all, but the creditor kept calling him and calling him and calling him. So bankruptcy wouldn't have been a good solution for him. He really didn't need it. And those kinds of people, we're gonna, just kind of tell them how it is and tell them, what a good idea of how to handle that is, but we're not gonna take their money and we're not gonna have them file bankruptcy if they don't need it.
Right. And I look at you as an advocate. You're not only advocating for the client early on in the process when they're trying to figure out what direction they want to go. But I also know from working with you over these years that if you bring somebody in and you send them on their journey to get their case filed, so often they're either calling you back during the process if they have a frustration about something, or maybe their case was discharged 6 years ago and they still remember Tim Pierce. So, what is it about you that you think allows you to be there as that resource, even though, to be honest, it's not necessarily your job, but you're always there? I can't tell you the number of times. Hey, Joe Smith called me, and case was discharged 3 years ago, and they're having a hard time with their, their renter's insurance, right? You still get those calls, which I think is such a testament to you. But what's going on that's happening?
Well, thank you, but it's actually more of a testament to the relationship that's built. Because when I talk to people, I mean, we'll have actual real conversations, and we'll kind of go. I'll kind of walk people through the process the best I can, and from beginning and they're all to the end, and they're always welcome to call me. And if I've talked to them a few times, and they've got my number, I'm more than happy to talk to them again. And if I can't be the one to help them, like if somebody's in a chapter 13, for example, and they need help adjusting their plan, I can get them to the person who can, and that, I guess that's one of the nice things about being here a long time is I know that the infrastructure here, and I know who does what very well, and I can get people to the right person.
Right. And do you have any, specific stories about a time when you've really helped someone that stuck with you?
Yeah, there's a lot of people make an impact. I'm thinking of a time when, so I was working on a Saturday morning, and we get a lot of calls from people who had their vehicles repossessed. And if, as anyone knows, has ever had their car taken away, it's scary at first because you don't know if your car has been stolen or if it's just if it was repossessed and you don't necessarily recall getting a notice that your car was going to be repossessed. So it was a Saturday morning, and a gentleman called me, and he thought at first he thought his car was stolen, then it turned out to be repossessed, and he couldn't get a hold of the lender because the lender was working on Saturday, and his wife's cancer medication was in the car, and he couldn't get in the car because it was Saturday morning, and she absolutely had to have this medication. So I contacted one of the consumer protection attorney that we work with, attorney Nathan Delatorante. I called him on his cell phone on a Saturday morning at 8:30, and he took my call, and I told him the situation, and the person didn't know, like the client didn't know where the car was. The police didn't tell him. All he knew is that the car was impounded. He'd have to call back on Monday, and the lender would tell him something. And meanwhile, all the stuff is in the car. And Attorney Ante found out where the car was, and he called down to the tow lot and explained the situation to whoever was working there on Saturday, and they let the person in. And by noon, they had the medication out of the back of the vehicle. And then we talked about bankruptcy. And then, because bankruptcy was a good solution for him for the debt that he had, but before we could do that, we had to get his wife's medication out of the back of the car, and he did.
That's a great story, and it's those. I'm sure you felt a lot of gratitude from them. I'm sure they said thank you, and that meant a lot to them. And I thank you for creating stories like that. We operate here on a series of a set of core values, and always trying to find a way to help our clients. And you epitomize that, and I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate you taking the time to kind of help our clients or help anybody understand kind of where the journey starts. If you have questions about bankruptcy and how we can be empathetic and compassionate, and it's honest and real, and that you and your teammates are really here to help people kick off the journey in a positive way. But any ending words, anything you'd like to close this wonderful discussion with?
Well, thanks for having me. And I tell you, the process just starts with me, but it goes through, if you end up filing a bankruptcy or working with us, there's a lot of people along the way. And everyone that I've seen takes a strong interest in people and their situation too. So the caring doesn't stop with me. It goes all the way down the line, even after a case is discharged. So, we don't just file paperwork and then we're done. We follow people through. And like you say, we hear from people years later. So, and it's nice. It's actually enjoyable, very enjoyable for me to have those relationships and have people call me years later.
Well, I appreciate you joining me today on the Miller Law Chronicle podcast. It was a very, very valuable, great, insightful information to help our listeners. And I will be talking to you soon, my friend. And thank you so much. Appreciate all of your great insight and input.
Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate it.